course.
Now, I get global diplomacy and meeting with world leaders and all this, but maybe there could have been a better time and a better place than, again, on the Marine Corps' 250th birthday and the day before Veterans Day to bring one of the former leaders of Al-Qaeda into the White House. Don't you think?
I do.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and I want to wish all the service members out there, past and present, a happy Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your service to this great nation, regardless of what you did, how long you served, what your MOS was. You raised your right hand, you signed on the dotted line, you serve your country honorably, and for that, you are a hero in my book, and I respect the hell out of you. But you know who doesn't respect you at all? Yes, President Donald J.
Real quick, I like to give a shout out to my grandpappy, who was in the Navy in World War II. Shout out to him. He lost about 3 fingers on one hand, 2 on the other, and he used to tell the greatest jokes with those hands. Shout out to him. Shout out to Don Lounder. Love you, Grandpa.
Trump, who made the decision that yesterday on the Marine Corps' 250th birthday and one day before Veterans Day to literally invite one of the former leaders of Al-Qaeda into the White House so they could have a cutesy little meet and greet and President Trump could fawn over what a great guy he is. It's so obnoxious and so disrespectful to all the global war on terror veterans that it almost feels intentional.
And in your face.
We're going to talk about old
Very
Al-Sharar here, the current leader of Syria, or as we're going to call him in this video, Al-Jilani, which was his name when he was one of the leaders of Al-Qaeda. You know that organization that we say is responsible for 9/11? Yes. In the White House, having a fun little meeting. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Helps the channel. Let's jump into this thing and talk about why so.
I do not want to get sidetracked at all, but before we get into this, remember when they were freaking out on Zelensky about what he was wearing in the White House? What he was wearing, his attire. The president's minions attacked him over his attire. I was like, okay. And honestly, I couldn't expect any less from them because that's what they do. But this gentleman gets a passage. Okay, well, maybe I'm not seeing something. Maybe I'm not seeing something. Let's keep going.
So many veterans, especially global war on terror veterans, are so pissed off about this. So yes, Al-Jilani, the former leader of the Syrian faction of Al-Qaeda, responsible for the deaths of tons of American soldiers, so much so that the U.S. government had a $10 million bounty on his head, was paraded into the White House, and this is what Donald Trump had to say about him.
He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy.
Tough guy.
I liked him. I get along with him, the new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful because that's part of the Middle East. We have peace now in the Middle East, first time that anyone can remember that ever happening.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, there's no peace in the Middle East. The United States is currently bombing the shit out of Somalia. The ceasefire is being ended about every 12 minutes. So no, this is not a thing.
I have confidence that he'll be able to do the job, absolutely.
So as you heard there, Donald Trump thinks Al-Jilani is a great guy, and he likes him a lot. Again, on the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps, with a guy who's responsible for a ton of Marine deaths. Now, before we get into his 20-year terrorist backstory and talk about why he was installed as the leader of Syria, you're going to be shocked to find out who put him there. First thing I want to address is all of the Fox News Republicans and all the Christian Zionists out there who've been in absolute hysteria over the fact that Zohran Mamdani, an Indian guy,
I would just like to say that his views are not my views are not his views, but I would like to say that I miss the old Republicans. The one that used to raise hell, and complain about the snowflakes. I feel like they kind of, they've been outside a little too long in the snow because they don't have the same fight that they used to. They don't have the same fight. I'm not trying to bash them because that's not my intention, but I'm just saying they don't have the same fight.
just won the mayor's race in New York. Oh, how could you? How could you? While Donald Trump is parading one of the leaders of Al-Qaeda, the group responsible for 9/11, throughout the White House. Where's the outrage? guys? It kind of feels
We're
a little bit
excited.
fake now. What happened to the Islamophobia, guys? Ben Shapiro, where you at, buddy? Mark Levine, where's your outrage, guys? Could you imagine if Joe Biden would have done this? The hysteria, the absolute outrage. They'd have to replace the entire cast of Fox News because they would have all literally croaked from heart attacks and strokes. Of course, it's extremely selective when it comes to these things, isn't it? So let's do a little quick history on our best bud here, Al-Jilani. So he started his career in the early days of Iraq as an insurgent, killing American soldiers until he was caught in 2006 by U.S. forces, and held prisoner for 5 years until 2011 when President Barack Obama decided it would be a great idea to release him, in which he then immediately started the Al-Qaeda faction in Syria. He formed Jabhat al-Nusra, which is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda, which was immediate.
And that was a good decision. Why? Listen, a bad decision's a bad decision. I don't care who you are. What?
Designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. government. He then continued his terrorist work in Syria until the United States government put a $10 million bounty on his head
Why?
in 2017, not that long ago, by the way. And then the Syrian faction decides we want to rebrand ourselves a little bit away from Al-Qaeda, put a little makeup on the pig. All we got to do is, let's just change the name. So they changed the name to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, which is the current government in charge of Syria.
How convenient.
Al-Qaeda rebranded. Now, I get global diplomacy and meeting with world leaders and all this, but maybe there could have been a better time and a better place than, again, on the Marine Corps' 250th birthday and the day before Veterans Day to bring one of the former leaders of Al-Qaeda into the White House. Don't you think? So how did this former leader of Al-Qaeda...
A normal person would think that it would be completely inappropriate, but see, this is, that's not what we're dealing with right now. What we are dealing with is a man who plays by his own rules, and the other people around him, nobody wants to hold him accountable. Apparently, in this party, there's no accountability. So when we are trying to vision this with our own perspective, like with logic, that's where you're wrong. You just can't do that because there's none in this. It's like a web. You know what I'm saying? We're just going to weave it. We're going to weave it. I'm telling you, you cannot try to make any sense out of this stuff, but it is great entertainment. And I really do like watching this guy because he puts it so straightforward. There's a lot of things that he's saying that I have no clue what he's even talking about, but I like to stay informed. I like information, and my husband watches this guy, and I told you guys I've been kind of peering over his shoulder to see what he says because there's so many different podcasters out here, and there's a lot of different information that you should be watching and just kind of see what's out there. You can also see Ian Carroll. He's the guy who is over on TikTok. That's another one that we're going to kind of dip our toes into. If you were here the other day, you saw me watch the I've Had a Podcast. There's just a lot of different podcasts out here with different perspectives. And I want to let you know that the tide is changing when it comes to some of the MAGA folks. But that is not what we're talking about right now. We are going to jump back into this video, and it's almost been 10 minutes. Let's keep it going.
To find himself in charge of Syria and becoming one of Donald Trump's close friends. Well, let's walk our way through how we got here. So Syria went through a brutal 12-year civil war with a ton of different factions, resistance forces, insurgencies, such a cluster to the point that at one point, the U.S. Department of Defense and the CIA were actually arming two different groups that were fighting each other. Then you also had, of course, Assad, who was in power, which we all know was a close ally of Iran and Russia.
It's like, are we talking about real wars? Are we talking about betting baseball teams against each other? What are we talking about? The owners of the Cubs versus the owner of the Yankees. What are we talking about? Like what? They're just going to say, we're going to give you money. We're going to give you money. Now let's see what happens. Well, because the bottom line that it comes down to the bottom line. It's called the money, the dinero, the currency, what makes everything go, the power, the reason why all of this stuff spins around. Let's keep going. I could get sidetracked.
Russia. Well, that civil war boiled over when Turkey and, somebody else in the region that might be our greatest ally, decided to support, fund, and help HTS overthrow the government of Assad. And why would they want to do that? Well, because Turkey and somebody else really wanted to create a lot of buffer space between themselves and Iran. That's interesting. But what's even more interesting than that? Well, there's a very, very hotly contested area between Syria and our greatest ally called the Golan